Good night. Um, our host will be with us periodically. Good night, Gia.
Hi. Oh, it's hot. Okay, we're on live. Good night, everybody, and welcome to another in our series. As we usually do, let's start with prayer. Almighty and eternal God, who through Jesus Christ have revealed your glory to all nations, please protect and preserve the leaves of our beloved country. God of might, wisdom, and justice, please assist our Belizean government and people with your Holy Spirit of counsel and fortitude. Let the light of your divine wisdom direct their plans and endeavors, so that with your help we may attain our just objectives. With your guidance, may all our endeavors tend to peace, social justice, liberty, national happiness, the increase of industry, sobriety, and useful knowledge. We pray, mercy, for all of us, that we may be blessed in knowledge and sanctified in the observance of your most holy law, that we may be preserved in union and in that peace which the world itself cannot give. And after enjoying the blessings of this life, please admit us, dear Lord, to that eternal reward that you have prepared for those who love you. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Good night, Tata.
Good night,
Good night.
Glennis, and good night to all our
Yes.
viewers and Belize
Yes.
Belmopan. This is an interactive show. Tonight is a very important, I believe it's an important show, dealing with an important topic. Um, the topic of tonight's show is the aftermath. Normally don't refer to aftermath after good things happen. It's normally after disasters. And I do believe a disaster has occurred. One that certainly has great implications for democracy, if we can still call it that. So I will discuss it, and I will discuss what I can about it and share with you, our audience, exactly what the position is in Belize. So that you understand, this election, unlike any other election before, and I will explain myself clearly, is really and truly one that is sanctioning inequality, hypocrisy, corruption, and I can go on with the lists of derogatory things that this election represents. But I
Most of
want to
all,
lay out the facts. Yes. I want to lay out the facts most of all. It's not about how it can be described. It's not about feelings. It is about the facts and what the facts speak to. Go ahead, Lance.
no, I was saying that we're at a crossroad in our society where we have to be very cognizant of that we are in a situation in our country where the courts are not doing its function the way it should. Whether we want to admit it or not, we have to understand that we have to make the court, the judiciary autonomous. We cannot have politicians have judges without tenure so that they might feel uncomfortable in rendering certain decisions. We have to do certain changes in our country, and our Belizean people must start to stand up. Tonight, for example, Arta, I was looking at the news where the PSU president was saying that the PSU members must now get up out of their sleep. They must now stand up. And I don't think that you will find that happening because I do believe that at this juncture, public officers are still afraid,
Mhm.
just like others under politicians. That's where we are at in Belize.
Well, I come from the school that said there's nothing to fear than fear itself. But I understand exactly what you're saying. Certainly, I agree that in the judiciary there is need for tenure. It should always be that that is the case. There are three branches of government, and those three branches should be autonomous in relation to how they are administrated and how they are how the decision making process occurs within them. But in Belize, we have a bastardized system, and I'm sad to say that the responsibility for bastardization of the Belizean democratic system falls squarely on members of the legal fraternity. So it's sad that that's the case. The legal fraternity, by and large, has contributed many politicians who have been successful in attaining parliamentary seats. And instead of strengthening the institutions of democracy, especially the judiciary, they have actively undermined it, which is sad. But that is not to say that we don't have competent people and that we don't have a good judiciary, because I do believe we still do have a good judiciary. It's not the best that we can have, but it's good enough to do a decent job most of the time. Now, to lay out the facts of what occurred yesterday, I want to say this, and I believe it's important to be said. From the time I was able to read and understand, I was always given the notion of equality, the notion that regardless of the color of your skin, or where you were born, or how much money you have, you are no better, no worse than anyone else. And I was also taught at a young age that no matter who you are, your station in life, under the law, we are all equal. I believe those things. Those things were, I believe, a part of every Belizean growing up in my time, a part of what they were taught and understood. But lo and behold, I've come to realize that even though we become independent in Belize, and we came independent under the notion of equality of all Belizeans, today we are not equal. But what has the inequality brought for those who are supposed to have the greatest value? It has not brought them anything. What this whole situation between December 2019 to 28th October 2020 has shown me, Glennis, and those who are listening to us, is that the people have been made pawns. They have been toyed with, artificially propped up in some areas to have it appear that there is great power and there is great deference towards them, and diminished in other areas. But it's all done not for the people's sake, but for the sake of those politicians in those particular areas. And our people need to start to recognize that they are being played. And they're being played to their own detriment. Because at the end of the day, listen, the reality is that Fort George Division has less than 2,000 people. When last count, I believe it was 1,800 and something. So in order to win the Fort George division, all that is needed for the person who comes out victorious is a little over 900 votes. Now, 900 votes would not even get you a sniff of the halfway mark in Belmopan, or in Kaya South, or in Kaya North, or in Sand Creek West. Not even a sniff of the midline. But the truth of the matter is that the political class has accepted this disparity, this injustice, because the representative from Sand Creek West, I haven't heard his position on redistricting. He should be the one clamoring the most for it.
Exactly.
I've heard maybe a smuttering from Kaya South, but nothing of any conviction. The Belmopan representative has said nothing at all. So he has actually agrees with the diminished value of the Belmopan voter, as do they all in these constituencies that are large, because none of them came forward to say, listen, we cannot accept this inequality. We want to ensure that we have proper representation for our people, and we cannot do it alone. We need to have these divisions be made smaller so that at least those in our constituencies that are not being properly represented can get proper representation. But did they do that? No, they did not. So they agree. Now, here's the kicker behind all this. A lot has been said about what happened yesterday. So let me explain quickly, as much as I can, about what happened yesterday. There was a hearing for the injunction, and the injunction was, I will make it clear, it was not about stopping the election. That's not what the injunction was about. The injunction was about addressing the problem that the Schedule 1 of the Representation of the People's Act, which is that part of the law that identifies the boundaries and borders of the various constituencies, that is now unconstitutional. It does not represent what the Constitution requires anymore, because within those boundaries, especially when we talk about the Belize City constituencies, the numbers are way too small. And in the rural and district constituencies, the numbers are way too big. So there is no democracy. In fact, that is what the expert witness commissioned by the court made known, that this coming election in Belize is not a democratic election. So I'll tell you what. I first got my voter ID card in 1989. That's the first election I was eligible to vote. I was working in politics from 1985, but I got my voter ID card in 1989. I've always voted. I've always voted. I believe it is my democratic right to do. But that's the key word, democratic right. What's going to take place if it does happen without us being able to get an audience in a higher court? If it should happen, because we are going forward to appeal this, if it does happen in November 11th, it will not be a democratic election, and I cannot support or endorse that. If I go to the polls on November 11th, it's either because I am saying that I affirm that I believe I am better and more important than someone in another constituency, or I'm less than someone in another constituency. And I cannot affirm or support that. There may be many who will do that, and I will not cast any judgment on you for that. But I cannot willingly go to the polls accepting that I'm less than what the Constitution of Belize says that I am. Belize is a constitutional democracy, but that constitution has been hijacked. And it's been hijacked for too long. And what the Belize Peace Movement set out to do is to not only educate and have people appreciate what's taking place, but take steps towards remedying it. And that takes courage. That takes more courage than getting involved and putting your name to be a part of a farce. That takes a hell of a lot of courage. And I applaud and commend those gentlemen and women in the Belize Peace Movement for what they're doing. So we continue, we march on. But as I said, I cannot sanction something I don't believe in. I don't believe in. I believe in democracy. I believe in equal rights and justice. I believe in social justice. You see. And I believe that through social justice, we can have national happiness. We can have the increase of industry, sobriety, and useful knowledge. But we cannot have it with inequality, injustice, and corruption. Going to the polls on November the 11th would mean that we're endorsing corruption. That's what it means. We're not going there to register anything else but an affirmation of corruption. I will not make this a diatribe, Glennis. Let's let's speak. I may hear you.
No, I, as I told you yesterday, I strongly feel the same way. I don't. First of all, when a party like the PUP, who since 2005 knew that there was a need for redistricting, never brought it up, never fought for it all these years, and come to me and say, as soon as we get into the House, and I'll tell you this, should the PUP win and they get into the House as government, when this is brought to them, they say, we just get into the House. We can't do this right away. And so it is my hope that the Belize Peace Movement will carry forward this demand through the courts, so that although that injunction yesterday was not fruitful, that we can force, and it's sad that it is the common man and not the politician who should be working for the people. They no longer serve the people. This is something that has been lost along the way. Service of people. You are to make sure that everybody within our country believes are treated equally. And you can't tell me that where you have an area like Fort George and you compare it to an area like Belmopan or Stann Creek West, that the people of Stann Creek West and Belmopan deserve less.
Mm-hmm.
There is no way you can convince me that we deserve less. In fact, as a capital city, this is where most of all focus in trying to ensure that it is a productive area. And so at the end of the day, when we see this happening, I am hoping that people will no longer just sit by and say, you know what, let it happen this way. Because a lot of people will say, why don't you just leave it until? You can't leave it until, because this was on the plate. The PUP knew that this had to happen since 2005. We are here 15 years
let me
later.
say something here, GL, because I think one of the things that a lot of people may not have known. The Election and Boundaries Commission in 2004, which was a year after the PUP's last administration got its second term. So after the election was 2003 and 2004, there was a
A
commission
commission.
that was set up, or a task force set up by the Election and Boundaries Commission, headed by then Solicitor General Elson Kaseke, and Gadsby Ramos was also one of the persons who was in that commission and that task force. And there's another person. So there were three persons, a three-person task force. Noreen Fairweather was the third person. So those were the persons who were charged with the responsibility to examine the constituencies in Belize and bring back recommendations for how they could be made more equal. They did their job. They brought back a document. They outlined what was necessary, and they came and said, well, we should have constituencies of a particular figure with a deviation of about 15%, maximum deviation of 15%, which is well within international standards. And if it was implemented back then, we wouldn't be in this problem now. But suffice it to say, there was so much turmoil within that second term of the PUP. We remember the G7 situation happened maybe a year after the task force was concluded. So internal party politics overtook the intention and duty the country that was supposed to have been carried out. And the redistricting was put on the back burner. And here we are now, some 16 years later, with a worse problem. What the expert says here is this. It says the right to vote in Belize is fundamental. Severe malapportionment is violative of that right under international standards of democracy. It goes on to say that the particular standards utilized vary across nations and organizations. Most international organizations urge countries to draw electoral boundaries such that the maximum deviation is 10%, with additional allowances for districts drawn over sparsely populated areas. So what they're saying is, listen, if you have a situation where you have constituencies of 2,000 or 3,000 people, most countries have that you have a maximum deviation about 10%. So if you're talking about 2,000 people, it would be 200 up or 200 down. That would be a deviation. If it's 3,000, it would be 300 up, 300 down. So you'd have constituencies of 2,200, that's fine. 3,300, that's fine. Even what was being proposed in 2004 of 15% is good, and I'll read that. So, for example, the United States allows almost no deviation. So the United States strive to have one man, one vote. Now, the difference in the United States and anywhere else is that you have 50 separate countries coming together to form one. That's why they're called the United States. So Illinois has its own head of government, which is the governor of Illinois. Okay, Iowa has its own head of government, which is the governor of Iowa, and so on and so forth. Now, they come together in a federation, and that federation has at its head a president. So it's a multi-layered system. So in the United States, from state to state, you will have huge deviations in relation to how the constituencies are divided. Because, for example, Rhode Island is one of the smallest states. Its population is very, very small compared to New York State, which is close by, which is huge. Now, in Rhode Island, there is one man, one vote for the constituencies within Rhode Island. So when you compare, just for argument's sake, Rhode Island North, Rhode Island South, or Rhode Island East, Rhode Island West, these places don't exist. I'm just giving they would show no deviation. If there is 2,000 persons per constituency, that's all you'll find in every one of those constituencies there. In New York, however, you're talking about the millions. So, in fact, I think New York City has about 8 million or 10 million people, maybe more. So the various boroughs, the 5 boroughs, would have different constituencies, but their constituencies would also be of the same number or close, but it will be much larger than Rhode Island constituencies. But again, we're talking about 2 different states, 2 different countries coming together as one. Huh? So that is the extreme as it relates to one man, one vote. On the other side of the spectrum, the Republic of Korea allows for deviations of as large as 33.3%. 33.3%. So if you're talking about deviation of that size, a constituency with 2,000 people will be allowed to have a bit over 500 or 600 persons above that number, going lower or upper of that range. But in Belize, this is what the expert says. It says the degree of malapportionment or voter discrimination present in Belize today far exceeds any threshold suggested in other countries or by international organizations. We are the worst. We are the worst. We are so bad it cannot be considered democratic. And if that is not an urgent problem, an emergency, then I don't know what is.
What is?
Suffice it for me to say that yes, one could hold what was held, and that is legal and right. But it's also legal and right to challenge it. Because what is law but interpretation of words that are imprecise? So yes, there is sufficient room for human error. Not to say that one was made, but we'll find out. Okay? He says, using a 10% deviation standard suggested by international organization, only four of Belize's current electoral divisions are not severely malapportioned. Now, I really and truly, what amuses me is that so many are gung-ho to go forward in an election where only 4 constituencies could properly elect a member of parliament. Only 4 of them. Which leaves 28 divisions that automatically will be challenged as soon as elections are over. Because in this election, the only loser will be the people of Belize. Because every person who goes and signs up as a candidate will have an automatic ground for appeal of his loss. He will say it was not constitutional. It was not constitutional. There will be no writ of election then. The writ of election would have been gone. They would all line up in front of the court. And you know who's going to pay the bill? The Belizean taxpayer. The ones that they are saying, oh, they want election bad. We can't stop 100,000 people from vote because they want to vote bad. They really want to vote. Vote for what?
But Arthur, let me ask a question. For argument's sake, elections are held, and the day after election, only one person from a constituency stand up and say that this election was unconstitutional, one person who has lost, can that one person still hold back that writ?
No, once the election is over, it's over. There is no writ of election to consider
Okay.
then. The process is finished. You see, what you'll have then
Okay.
is either transition into a new administration headed by a new party, or you'd have a transition where the same party that has been in power goes back with the changes that they have made internally. But this election, there will be the transition will not be smooth. We will be in a constitutional crisis on the 12th of November, a crisis of our own making.
Why?
Because we are hell-bent on having an unconstitutional election. There can be no constitutional
And then that's
election on the 11th of November if the schedule remains the same. But it seems to me that some people are so hungry for power that they don't care about the law.
okay.
And would use.
But my question.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
You see, when I say they don't care about the law, the Constitution is the supreme law. And the Constitution is clear. There is no ambiguity about it. What was used to get around it was the notion of the writ of election being issued. What they would have said had an injunction been sought before the writ of election, they would have said it would fail for prematurity because we are premature. We don't know when election will be called. So if we had brought this action in March, in April, in May, in July, in August, or even in September, it wouldn't have gotten past the courthouse doors because they would have struck it down for prematurity. Okay? So it's always jurisdictional.
But what I'm saying, Arthur, is this. You're saying that this election will be unconstitutional. And we have had for the past 3 elections something that is unconstitutional. True or false?
Yes.
So now I'm saying, okay. So now, what makes this one different in that come the morning of the 12th, and you have someone who says, I want to have my division, my constituency. I want to demand that we have a constitutional division for my area. I have lost, and I believe that it was too big.
This is what makes it different. This is what makes it different, Dennis.
Okay.
This document that I hold in my hand, until another expert is brought to refute what this expert has said with the same kind of data and show that he is wrong, then this is telling us in an objective way that what we have in Belize and what we're calling in Belize a democracy is in fact a fraud. We do not have a democracy in Belize.
Okay, so what grounds now would I have? Let's say I was running. I'm running. I was running in Belmopan, and on the 11th I lost. I've lost Belmopan, and I want to I want to go to court to say that it's unconstitutional, and I want a redress.
Yes.
How can I do that?
You'll make your application. You'll put a constitutional challenge. You'll join the BPM and become an interested party in their case. You are going to jump on board. I mean, it's there already. It's not like the court don't know. They know.
Okay then. But during that time, will a winner for the Belmopan division, if I'm challenging it, as I said, I've lost, but now I'm challenging that the Belmopan constituency is was malproportion, and I want to have um, a better redistricting of my area. In
No,
that case,
you're applying to declare that the election in Belmopan was null and void by virtue of
okay,
not meeting the constitutional standard at the time it was held, right? So it would be as if no election had taken place in Belmopan. No, the thing
and
about
so
that is this, and it's so
wow,
irresponsible that this would be happening because we are in the middle of a pandemic. Okay, we're in the middle of a pandemic. People are being asked to go to the polls at great risk to themselves to exercise a right that they should have, but that they're not really being given.
okay,
Because you cannot call this a democratic right. Going to the polls on the 11th of November is not exercising a democratic right,
all
especially
right,
in Belmopan, because you're not voting in a democratic election.
all
Going to the
right,
polls, going to the polls on November the 11th is more
okay,
akin to you being considered a robot or something, the part of a machine, not a human being, doing
okay,
what you should do without thinking. Take away your intellect and your ability to think and understand. Go and put an X on a piece of paper because that's all you're doing. It means nothing more than that. You're not giving a franchise because you yourself is less than what you believe you are or what you should be. You're not equal to anybody. You're either more or less.
you're less in
And
this
that's what you're
area.
sanctioning in that election.
Okay, no, um, in seeking that particular redress, for me, um, if that be the case, would I then um be able to hold a stay, or can I ask for a stay? What do I ask for
At what point?
after the election?
No, there's no need for a stay. Again, as I said, in 71% of the constituencies, 28 total. No, 27 total, sorry. 27 total. In 27 of the constituencies, there is a position of unconstitutionality that presents a ground for appeal of any election decision automatically.
All
It's
right,
an, it's an irrefutable grounds to challenge the election in that area.
all right,
Okay? Now,
okay,
some may say, well, you acquiesce to that position, but it doesn't take away the fact that it exists. And the mere existence of it makes it challengeable.
okay, all right,
Right?
okay, all right. Um, no, in this particular case, though, Arthur, what we might end up seeing happening is that because there is this rule by parties, um, I think, where you are supposed to follow the directive of you can't, let's say you belong to UDP, you can't go against your party. I don't remember. It has to do with the crossing of the floor and decisions and stuff. Once your party has a decision, as an individual, you don't have that right to stand up on your own.
That's only in the
Um,
House. That's only in
oh,
the
that
House.
okay. So if let's say I was running for one of the mass party and I don't agree with it, I don't have to wait for my party's will to prevail. I could jump up and say, well, if I kick you out,
No,
because
no, 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 no. Listen, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
okay.
We are a first past the post system.
Mm-hmm.
The party with the majority of the seats in the House is the party that forms the government. Right? We are first past the post. So, in a situation where there can be no clear winner,
Okay.
because of the unconstitutionality, what do you think will happen? Both parties will have to be in court.
Oh yeah.
They are going to have to be there. One will have to defend.
But
One will have to
Arthur
defend his
can
position that they're saying that their election will be legitimate. The other will be saying it's illegitimate. But at the end of the day, who pays? It's the taxpayers that will pay, because these are constitutional claims. It's claims against the state. Now, the funny thing about it is this. If it comes on the 12th of November, these challenges, who's going to be the AG? Who's going to be the Attorney General to answer these charges? There will be none. You understand me? So we're going to be right in the middle of a constitutional crisis the next day.
Oh gosh. No, the thing is, as a person who is not a lawyer, I there are certain things I want to clarify. In that, Arthur, can because we saw the PUP asked to join, but these people, I can remember when you had a case against, you couldn't take it against the PUP per se, because they are not a registered.
It wasn't the PUP that asked to join.
Okay, who asked?
The leader of the opposition. Leader of the opposition asked to join in his own name to introduce his party's position. Yes, but he came in his own name, and the chairman of the party came in his own name. Right? That's how they were able to get on. In that capacity.
So as far as it wasn't a PUP thing, you can say, because they're not a legal entity. They're not a legal entity, right?
No, they are not. They're not a legal entity at all. As I said, they are no more. They have no more standing in a court of law than the Crips, the Bloods, or MS-13. No more. And they have done more damage to the country than those entities.
Yeah. All right. We have been discussing, and we have not been looking at the different comments. Let's do that, Arthur, so quickly so that we could continue.
By all means, please.
Reggie Jacks from Miss Ione, from Miss Nancy, called for good
guys.
And blessings. Mr. Hamid says, I called you for your happy birthday, my brother. May God bless you.
Thank you.
And strength. Likewise, Miss Teresita says, blessings and good night to both of us. Only in a Belize. Belize says, Mr. Blada has a number of questions, and I will go through all her questions, and then we can make a discussion if anything is said.
Yes.
She says, all elections has been done unconstitutional for many years. Why now? Okay, this is a Michael Ashcroft agenda that did get achieved. So who's sponsoring you guys redistricting? And I want maybe if Bobby is listening, thanks Tanis, all elections are unconstitutional. So what makes this one different? Okay. And then she has one more comment.
Allow me to answer that quickly, please. Because you know,
you have to see the difference.
Sometimes we get caught up in personalities, and this is not about personalities. You know, it's lamentable that in the country we didn't have more people who had the finances to be able to do what Michael Ashcroft did in paying for an expert witness, it would have been great if somebody other than him could have assisted. But it was also great that he did it. At least he could, and he had enough concern to do it. This is not something for him to be maligned over. Whether we go red or blue, Michael Ashcroft is on both sides of that. Understand?
Yes,
There is no
paid
getting
both
away
sides.
from Michael Ashcroft's agenda. His agenda is in full play, whether you're talking about the PUP or the UDP in this present construction. The only politician that Michael Ashcroft didn't have in his pockets was George Price. Understand that? Okay? Now, well, there may be others as well, but in terms of the leaders of parties, no, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I will say this. When a matter is taken to court, okay, it becomes within the purview of the court's knowledge. A lot of things can happen out there in the public and the private that are not right. But if you don't know about it, what can you say about it? What can be done about it if it's not known? Yes, we suspected before, but up until now, there was no concrete proof that anyone could have done anything about. We do have that now. Understand that when the injunction was applied for on the 9th of October, the expert report was not out yet. So we were still going on what we believed in terms of what my clients believe. They did their own private study, but they are no experts. They didn't write any books. They didn't conduct any seminars. These are just Belizeans who love Belize and care enough about Belize that they want to see things done right. They did this on their own. But they had enough commitment and conviction to not be afraid to bring it to the court. Where they knew, listen, we are going to get a lot of undue attention. Powerful people are going to make us their enemies. Well, I've had powerful enemies for quite a long time. I'm kind of used to it. But most of these guys, they don't have that.
There are people who have served their community well.
Yes. But at the end of the day, it's about improving our country and ensuring that it works to serve every Belizean. This was not a selfish venture. And please, don't get confused and don't get it twisted. Michael Ashcroft has not one dime in this in relation to the Belize Peace Movement. I am the attorney for the Belize Peace Movement. In this effort, I have received not one penny from Michael Ashcroft or anyone representing Michael Ashcroft.
But more than
I have
that,
not asked for it and I have not gotten it.
Peace
and I will
movement.
not ask for it and I don't care to receive it either.
Yeah. I think one of the things is to have people know that they do have a membership where you pay to become a member. If you're 18 years or younger, you can be a member free of cost, but there are different kinds of members in the Belize Peace Movement. So before we speak about things like this, we should try to find out more about these causes. I'll continue. Mr. Lopez, Bobby Lopez, good night. He said, our case continues. Others can join as interested parties. And Mr. Blatter says, all these challenges should have been long time. So why prove now? Everyone that joins Michael Ashcroft bandwagon is vulnerable. But this
okay,
is something.
if that's the case, then you can't vote for John Briceño then, because John Briceño is a vassal of Michael Ashcroft. He is basically a part of Smart Speednet. Michael Ashcroft owns 95% of that company. So
Not only that,
if that's the logic of things, then who are you going to vote
one
for?
one of the things
You go
one
on
of
the
the
other
things
side of the
though,
coin to the UDP. Well, Dean Barrow is out now.
yes, but he had a big role to play with Dean Barrow.
Right.
But Arthur, one of the things that you have to point out too was that the Belize Peace Movement had their case in court, and it was after this case started its motion that Michael Ashcroft applied to join. It was not something that he was a part of from the very beginning. And people, again, as I said, we need to get our information before we start jumping up and say certain things, because it was only, I think,
It's a fair question. It's a fair question. It's a fair question. I will not.
but
Disparage the question.
it
It
was
needs to
it
be
was
asked.
only it was only like earlier this year Michael Ashcroft applied to become a part of this particular venture. This venture started from last year because before it started, this group, the Belize Peace Movement, had tried to write letters and try to do it just without having to go to court. And that's why the process in the court did not start, because they went through there's a certain chain of command, a step that you have to follow. And they made sure that the steps were going, that they're going through right now were done without jumping anyone, so that at the end you could not say this is where you should have started.
Right.
It had started from the bottom, where they wrote to the election and boundaries. They were making affirmation to the government, asking for it to be done before they got to the court system. So it's something that we need to understand.
Let me read
Um,
something from the Constitution, because I don't want this point to get lost. Right. And
okay.
let me read this one. Determination of questions as to membership of National Assembly. This is section 86 of the Constitution of Belize. Any question whether any person has been validly elected as a member of the House of Representatives or validly appointed as a senator. That's A, right? And that's all we're dealing with right now. Shall be determined by the Supreme Court in accordance with the provisions of any law. All right. Now, that will tell you right away that the recourse that you have, if you want to challenge whether somebody has been elected legally, legitimately, is going to the Supreme Court. So when everybody in Belize at this point knows that there's a dispute as to the constitutionality of these constituencies, what do you think will happen? What do you think will happen? This is not about why you bring it now and can we do this before. That's not making it right. The fact of the matter, the problem still exists. And isn't it best to solve the problem and have one election, one time, that is right, constitutional, and just, rather than to have a fraudulent election that will result in other elections in other areas on other days, after the Belizean people get fleeced again by having to pay damages to politicians who knew before they signed their name on the dotted line that the damn plate that the constituencies were unconstitutional and elections were unconstitutional. This is how your country gets poor, by making these nonsensical decisions and having people clap and go along with it. For what? We should be clapping and go along with something that we see and know is wrong. This is where the politicians believe that they have gauged the understanding and the sophistication of the Belizean people right, or the lack thereof. Because we are living in a society where people don't stand up for what they believe or what is right. They go along to get along, and we cannot have a country that way. We are not going to have a country to be proud of that way. Look at what's taking place right now, and with the PSU. The PSU, They are there. They are public servants. They are in those offices and those ministries. And they know what's taking place. They see the waste that's going on. They know of the corruption taking place. And you don't really hear much from them until the matter comes to their doorstep. Sorry to say this, I support the PSU, but the truth is I will lay it out and lay it bare. The PSU had been complicit in 2008, between 2008 and 2012, complicit with a lot of things that went wrong in Belize. Their president in particular was complicit with a lot of what was happening. Not the one who was presently there, mind you, but the one that was there in 2008. So now, it's sad that we have got to this point, but these were the people who are supposed to be providing some of the checks and balances in the system to prevent this from happening.
Yeah.
But they were not vocal enough. They were not vigilant enough. And here we are.
Yeah. Bobby Lopez explains that the BPM is self-funded by fearless patriot members and Belizean patriots who want a better Belize for all Belizeans. Mr. Blatter says, so why all the educated Belizeans are stooping down to an old white Englishman that is ruining our country? And even you all now are going down his road to continue ruining the country, country to his demise. Time to get rid of Ashcroft. Piranha Billy says, why don't you go to court to remove him? Bobby Lopez says, sorry, I lost. Yes, exactly, Dennis. You have been following us from the onset. Others have not. Mr. Blatter, if Belize Peace Movement is an independent body, please educate the Belizean populace on how to join you all and to give the MOU so I think it's some transparency will be divulged and people will be open mind about your group. And you can go, Mr. Blatter, on the Facebook page of the Belize Peace Movement. You also have a website where you can get some information and see what they're all about. Why didn't you all file for an injunction before the House was dissolved?
Yes, well, as I said, we did not have at the time the expert report as yet to give an objective view of what was presented to the court prior. The conventional wisdom on bringing it before as well is that it would be struck down for prematurity, because here's the concept of separation of powers. The court, in terms of the judiciary, cannot interfere or overreach into the responsibility of the other two branches of government unless something has been done by them that would be considered beyond their powers or ultra vires, right? At the time of the filing of the case, we are dealing with a matter that existed and we are seeking to get it remedied. But the only way to know if it truly existed was after the information was brought in. There was no testimony, there was no evidence in any court of law as yet. The evidence that was being sought initially was the expert's report. So when the expert was given the mandate to do what he was supposed to do on July the 24th, 2020, he went to do that. But the very same people from Election and Boundaries Commission and Election and Boundaries Department who were supposed to cooperate with him to give him the information to get that report done quickly were actually frustrating the effort. They did everything in their power to ensure that he could not get his report done on time. So much so that the expert had to get the information he needed from private individuals, private
Wow.
sources. He had to
Wow.
go outside of the established authorities to get the information needed to put together his report. And all that is articulated in his report.
And
How
that's
government
sad.
officers were saying, we were not a part of the case, so we're not covered by this order. So you have to pay us, requesting a
Wow.
fee, and even after the expert is telling them, I'm paying your fee, they don't respond. That's the level of corruption we have in Belize, people. And then to have the Election and Boundaries Commission come to court and say, well, the writ was already issued. That was the plan, to ensure that expert report would not be completed before the
Yes.
writ of election was issued. That was the
Yes.
plan, people. They knew that there's a problem, but to protect politicians running in small constituencies that would be eliminated from the rolls, they did what they did. It's not about the Belizean
But
people, it's about the politicians.
they don't serve the
Like certain deals that were made for the ICJ referendum. And we could get into that, but I'm not in that right now.
not now. Mr. Bobby Lopez says, I invite you to join. Together, we are stronger. Please visit www.belizepeacemovement.org and sign up to be a member. Become a part of the solution or remain a part of the problem. We would be honored. Okay? And then Mr. Blada said, oh, PSU, the vagabonds. Oh boy. They
No,
are all politically inclined and play a blind act. It's their very own. Miss Ariel Lightfoot. This is why Guatemalans are running in our election without renunciation, because public officers the stamp the illegal citizenship. Um, Mr. Blada says, as a public officer, I withdraw from the PSU because the union is politically inclined in having their own agenda. Ms. Amira Smith says, it is Halloween season and Lord Ashcroft is the boogeyman. Mr. Samuel says, good night, guys. Amira
night.
says, Tablada is more scared of the man and don't care that she has no value in Belize at this time. That is very sad. Miss Kathleen Flowers says, my take the whole 9 years. Appeal. Next move.
Yes.
And Mr. Blada says, um, Arthur, I'm happy when you talk about PSU. That should be your next topic. And invite the members who are on the PSU, who are politically inclined, that are quiet and condone the GOB. I would suggest you invite few, you know who they are. And David Henderson said, good night, I'm watching.
Good night. Good night.
So, yes, Arthur. You have, like Miss Flowers says, you have those steps. Elections are coming within 2 weeks from now.
Yes.
A day less because it's on a Wednesday. But the appeal process, as you have explained, will continue.
It will.
Um,
It will continue right through. It doesn't matter if the elections come and go. We are still going to be carrying through the appeal, because for all the authorities that were presented by the other side in this case, none fits the criteria of our case. There are enough grounds for us to appeal. You see, we are talking about a case in terms of this Police Peace Movement Challenge Claim 55 of 2019 that was before the court from October of last year. The government of Belize knew that this was coming, knew what was in it, knew what it was about. They chose to do nothing about it. They chose to frustrate the expert, preventing him from getting his report done in the time that he could have. And despite what they did, this is what the expert had to say at paragraph 128. 1 minute. Paragraph 128 of the expert report, he says, all this work that he did was accomplished within a matter of weeks, demonstrating how swiftly this type of data can be produced even under unfavorable circumstances. Unfavorable circumstances. So he's saying, even though they tried to stop me from doing my job, I got the job done within a matter of weeks. So this is not something that they need to use as an excuse that will take years to do. The expert produced 3 maps.
Wow.
3 different variations of how he could get the population, the voting population of Belize, constitutionally aligned while maintaining 31 seats.
Okay.
No increase.
So it won't cost. Yeah.
No increase. 31 seats. And with that work, 4 seats from Belize City would be taken out and dispersed.
And they don't want that
in the districts. That's what they don't want, because of a deal
they
that
don't
was
want
made. Because of a deal that was made for the ICJ referendum. You see, there was a deal.
They don't want that.
Talk to me in private about a deal.
Aye. Mr. Jordan says change has to start somewhere and at some time. So why not now? If we
That's my point exactly.
Yes, referencing the past, the future will deserve. The future we deserve will continue to be out of reach. The powers always within the people. Yes, I totally agree with that one. You have power, and people must understand the power that they have within themselves, not to stand back and let things just slide.
The fact of the matter is, Glennis, the UDP and the PUP are as good to us as dinosaurs. These are vestiges of the past, a past that we need to move away from. They are best put in the museum for people to look at, to remember in their glory days how destructive they were, and to remind us that we don't need that kind of destruction in our country anymore.
Learning from our past and not make the same mistake for the future.
Yes. Time to relegate
that's why history is important.
To the pages of history, because they're not serving us. Yesterday was the greatest attestation to the PUDP moniker. The 2 political parties joined together to block democracy, and they ran away from a debate.
And each side blaming the other. It's sad.
They don't want democracy of any kind, no kind of transparency, no kind of democracy. That's not what the PUP and UDP are about.
And answerable. They don't believe that they are answerable and accountable to the Belizean population, and that is sad. It is my hope. It is my hope, however, that our younger generation, seeing what is happening, will make a change. A change where we can become a better country.
They say the journey of 1,000 miles starts with 1 step. Well, yesterday was a very important step.
Exactly.
It was a very important step, and we'll keep on marching.
No turning back.
You see, there are many ways to conduct a revolution. I believe in a peaceful, constructive Belizean revolution. And that peaceful revolution is going to be fought within the precincts of the court first.
Yes.
We're going to fight it with law.
Yes. And that is important. And more and more, Arthur, what I do like, or what I is that a lot of the younger generation growing up and opening their eyes and not following just because it's a party, you follow that party. And we are learning, they're seeing, and that's why I say don't stop saying these things. We cannot just sit by and not speak and not show people certain things, because only by us voicing our opinions, voicing what we see as an injustice, can others then learn. It's a learning process. And so change begins with you, with myself, and then slowly it will build its own momentum, and we will see that change in Belize. I will see that change in Belize. We
Yes.
will have a better Belize for our children and grandchildren. We just have to have that faith.
Man, I hear some cook in the background. Change is going to come. I hear it in the background. Do we have any more comments? Anybody asking anything?
One more comment from Mr. Enriquez, Hubert Enriquez. He said, "Good night, Brother Arthur, Sister Gladys, and my good PSU sister, Miss." He said, "Don't leave PSU, sister." Wait. Something happened just now. He says, "Sister Tablada, stay and fight." So, and a lot of people, yes, get frustrated with certain things and they don't stand up and fight. But at the end of the day, hopefully, this is where I think PSU did not join forcibly with the teachers union, so that they can become stronger. But as I said, a step at a time, a day at a time, change will come and Belize will be a better place. We don't have to run away from Belize. Belize will be there for us, and it will become better because we will demand better.
No, before we go tonight, I want to just go over the numbers quickly for our audience, so they can get a full understanding of what's taking place in Belize. Now,
okay.
The largest constituency in the Belize district is Belize Rural South. Right? Belize Rural South is a constituency that is comprised of Ambergris Key and Kikaka. Right? The two islands. Now, Ambergris Key alone has a voting population of 6,349.
Wow.
That's Ambergris Key alone.
Wow.
You could put 3 Fort Georges, 4 Fort Georges in Ambergris Key alone. That's a full division of Ambergris Key.
Ay.
Right?
That's one division for sure. Gotta go.
No, Belize Rural North has 5,719. Caribbean Shores, 5,288. Collect 5,823. Fort George. This is basically what he is doing after making the constituencies as equal as possible.
Oh, okay.
4,412.
He's merging them.
Merging, right. Ladyville, 5,553.
So he gave Ladyville its own constituency.
Basically. Now, the thing about it is this. He crunched the numbers and did it for 3 separate variations and basically laid out and justified why he was doing it, gave all the
Okay.
deviations. Deviations
Okay.
are between 10 to 15%. That's the deviation that he used. Right? But what he is telling you right now, from the smallest to the largest, from Fort George to Stan Creek West, we have a deviation of over 400%.
Whoa.
400%.
400%.
I mean,
And that's why it's wrong.
how is that tolerable? How can we accept that? So what will happen now, I will be sharing bits of the report on the page so that those who are interested to see exactly what's in it can go and look at it. Okay, it's already been brought before the court. The court has it. The court has acknowledged receipt of it. It will be adjudicated upon in terms of, the government of Belize did not see it fit to get their own or to have commission another person to do it. Because this expert is not our expert. It's not Michael Ashcroft's expert. Understand that this man did not do any work for Michael Ashcroft. All that Ashcroft did was pay the fee necessary for this guy to do the work. But he is a court's expert. His work and his duty is to the court, not to us.
Not to a man.
But to the court. It's an independent and objective report. Nobody has come and said that this man is Mr. Ashcroft's personal statistician, or they are friends, or anything of that nature. He's a man of great credentials. He has books that he's written. He has studies that he has done, seminars. So he's a professional. You see?
Mr. Godwin Sutherland Sr. says, yesterday there was a might of government and a might of the PUP legal team, together with all their resources aimed against the BPM and its legal team. But nothing can remove the still existing fact that our people are valued less across the country and endorsed by our judiciary and executive. And Ms. Tablada has answered Mr. Enriquez saying, it's not like when you were president in your time, you all were there for the members. Now the union are being dictated directly by government, not stand up and gain their respect. They have no credibility now. You all need to be advisors. And then I think there is one more. Before advisors, I'm looking for that one. And then Mr. Bobby Lopez says Stan Creek is now at 9,800 plus. Smallest is large 1,800 plus. Still over a 500% disparity. And then it's gotten worse, Arthur. The expert used the June figures since the election and boundaries did not cooperate with him. So it's even worse than what the expert is saying.
Yeah.
Mr. Ferguson says, good night. Allow me this sentence here. Over the years, I've noticed many communities, constituencies are laid waste as their reps focus more on ministerial and cabinet efforts and less on the area they were voted in to represent. My humble question is to you, sir, is how should you be successful in your bid As area representative, do you plan to address the issue of divisional neglect in the area that you hope to represent?
Well, that's exactly what we are doing right now, Mr. Ferguson. In these large constituencies in the districts, it is certainly too difficult for one person to take on the responsibility for the entire constituency, and this is proven to be true. In Stan Creek West, where you have 9,800 persons, you are going to need at least another area rep for that place. It has to be broken down. This is what the expert has suggested. Bust it in two. Belmopan again needs to be busted in two. If these constituencies are broken down and more representation is given, there will be a more, the problem of neglect will not be what it is now. There's great neglect across the board. The problem is, even in Belize City, where the constituencies are small, there's still a lot of neglect. Because what has been the modus operandi of the police and politicians is not about serving people, it's about getting power. You see, it's a rush for power, not for the ability to develop communities and country. It's just about power. And that's what was on display yesterday. It's a hunger for power, not for representing people. And I believe the Belizean people should reject it. Yeah. There are certainly more important things now to consider than going out there and voting for a fraud. Your health is more important than that. So if you don't go out there, because if you don't go out there, don't say you're not going there because you don't want to vote, but because you want to stay healthy. That's a good reason to stay home. Don't be a part of a spike, for possible spike in COVID numbers. Because look what has happened now. All of a sudden, there's no quarantine needed anymore. You know why that is? They are going to open the borders very soon so that the Guatemalans from Melchor can come in to vote. They're going to allow people to come from the states or wherever they are to the PGIA, land and come in, and no quarantine needed, so they can come to vote. If you think that the people who they have at the airport will be able to test everybody, think again. Think again. These people, for their crave for power, are willing to put the health of the entire nation at risk. And that's all this is. Take us out, Glennis.
Before you go, Arta, your t-shirt, Arta, we'll have to see it properly. We'll have to see more of it. All right?
It's our official Belmopan Town Hall t-shirt.
Out with corruption. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
The guy in the middle is not the Family Guy character Peter Griffin. It's my namesake from Belmopan. Out with corruption. That's the face of corruption in Belmopan.
Okay. Then he said Corona Billy says that area reps should not be ministers. And then Miss Tablada says, oh, I'm happy you acknowledge that Ashcroft paid for the expert. So has he done any political expert, any redistricting case?
Yes, he has. I'll put up the expert's credentials so you guys can see it. It'll be there. I'll put it up.
Okay. Mr. Bobby Lopez says, we in the vision inspired by the people have advocated for area representatives not to be ministers. The cabinet ministers should be selected from professionals in their fields. We also believe that we should have direct elections for prime ministers. Prime Minister, we need serious political reform. Bring back the permanent secretary and get rid of the political appointed CEOs. I totally agree with that.
Oh yeah.
And then Mr. Blatter said, why worry about border open? We may permit persons of 57 comes the San Pedro infect the entire country and we play a blind eye. So is PT 57 LOL, please mention. Okay. Um, and we had mentioned that in our previous song how we totally did not agree with the plane coming in with those people who came
Yeah.
to San Pedro. We had said that time and time again. And then Mr. Blatter asked Bobby Lopez to offer himself. Anyway, we have gone nearly a half an hour over our time limit, but it was something I believe needed to get the information out. Um, and we did. At the end of the day, Arthur, we have to continue our fight and we have to continue the publicity. So, Town Hall,
We'll be here again next week.
yes, we thank you so very much for taking time out of your schedule to listen to us and to be a part of the series. Thank you very much for participating and giving your comments. Um, we hope and we look forward to having you again and to seeing you. May God bless you and keep you strong. Stay safe, wear your mask, and make sure that you look after yourself and each other. Blessings and good night.
Good night.
Bye.